Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. Here are 5 big stories for today. So let's look at what's going on in Kursk. That's what everybody wants to know about right now. The operation is going exactly as we expected. We are strengthening our positions. The area of our presence is getting stronger. And it appears from everything that I can detect that that is true. Now, it's interesting that that happened as it did. Ukraine's extraordinary incursion into Kursk has changed the narrative of the war, but it's a high-risk strategy. And so this article in the Guardian magazine said just a few paragraphs I want to go over. So far, the Ukrainian forces in Kursk have been tactically successful, and that's good. Under-trained Russian infantry have again performed poorly when lacking command and control and confronted by a maneuvering opponent without fixed points of reference. That's not how the Russians feel like they're in their sweet spot. They're in their sweet spot when they just bring up a lot of artillery and destroy stuff in front of them. Surrendering Russian platoons are a symptom of the poor cohesion that exemplified the Russian collapse in Kharkiv in 2022. So that seems to be repeating itself inside Russia this time. While the Kursk operation is politically significant, a parallel series of Ukrainian strikes targeting Russian airfields is more militarily advantageous. So they're actually striking, like the drone strike the other night, where they were hitting the glide bombs and the oil and trying to take out aircraft. That's good because these glide bombs are just being very destructive, and they can't contend with them because they're not allowed to use Western weapons from the US and the UK and so forth inside Russian territory. There is a limit to how successful Ukraine can be, however. It was suffering from a shortage of troops to rotate and hold the line prior to its operation in Kursk. Now it has pulled together what was available as an operational reserve and committed it to a new axis. There's a limit to how far this force can push before it overextends, meaning it will need to dig in soon if the Ukrainians are to hold ground until negotiations. But as soon as the front stops being dynamic, the Russians will dig defenses and then bring up artillery. That's the way that they know how to do war. So there is a limit. Now, this short-term motivation hopefully should be able to help with the recruitment exercise within Ukraine to get men mobilized, because they really need to mobilize more men. If the Ukrainians lose, it'll be because they haven't been able to mobilize enough men. It's not because they don't have the will or the desire or the technology or anything like that. If the Russians lose, it will be because of some kind of economic or political collapse. And so they're pushing against each other as hard as they can. But this last line is pretty ominous. As soon as the front line stops being dynamic, the Russians will dig defenses and bring up artillery. Okay, did you know that Ukraine's offensive derailed secret talks on a partial ceasefire with Russia? Now, not a complete ceasefire, not ending the war, but newspapers say that Kyiv and Moscow had planned to send their delegations to Qatar to negotiate through mediators a halt to strikes on energy infrastructure on both sides. That is, the Ukrainian energy grid and Russian oil. Okay, or oil and gas. But the offensive in the Kerch region put the end to those talks. Okay, Washington isn't sharing intelligence because the U.S. keeps self-deterring for some bizarre reason. They're not sharing the intelligence with Ukraine on targets inside Russia, said a senior U.S. official, who added that the Biden administration doesn't want to be seen as enabling an attack into Russian territory. Great. Okay. Gary Kasparov says, hope it's not confirmed. Now, this is more bad news, but it's absurd if so. The price of stopping Putin will only go up for Ukraine, most of all, but also for Germany, the rest of Europe, and the world. And the highest price will come from not stopping him. And that's a reaction to this article here, which says, how many times was Ukraine warning Germany, Austria, and company that Nord Stream 2 is a weapon, that once built, there will be a war? Now, we wouldn't have seen this before, but it does make sense in one sense. Russia would be economically really kind of controlling Germany through energy policy. Every time their arrogant response was, it's pure economy. And every time we both knew it was a lie. Now, I get why they would have thought that. It's the McDonald's theory, right? Now, Thomas Friedman, who is a New York Times columnist, is a big globalist and sees like, hey, if we're all connected, then we're less likely to go to war with each other. Well, but you weren't counting on Russia and the way that Russia thinks. So Friedman's claim was simple. the benefits of being economically integrated and having the money flowing in makes going to war practically unthinkable. And it sounds like a theory of capitalist peace is understood by Montague and Smith. That's pretty much because that's what it was. So it was called the McDonald's theory or the Golden Arches theory of conflict. And the idea was basically that no two countries that both have a McDonald's have ever fought in a war against each other. Well, that's blown up now. Okay, now beyond the Nord Stream issue, Germany, it looks like in the budget, will be cutting assistance to Ukraine. Here's what is in Interfax Ukraine. Germany will not provide Ukraine with military aid in the near future because, according to the federal government's current budget planning, there is no money for it at the moment. But already approved military aid will be delivered. The reason is austerity measures by the Chancellery and the Finance Ministry, the publication said, adding that assistance that has already been approved is still being delivered, but additional requests have to be approved at the request of Chancellor Scholz. Earlier, Germany transferred another package of military aid to Ukraine, and they've been very good about this, including Patriot air defense systems and other military aids. So support for Ukraine has been good from Germany, but it does seem like the coalition may be weakening a bit. Now, there's also an interesting story about Nord Stream pipeline being sabotaged a couple years ago, and it's come back into the news. I saw it 3 days ago, and then I thought, okay, well, let's just keep our eye on what's going on. Germany seeks the arrest of Ukrainian diver for Nord Stream sabotage. Okay. So Germany has issued a European arrest warrant for a Ukrainian diving instructor over his alleged involvement in the sabotage in the Nord Stream pipelines in the Baltic Sea, according to German media. German investigators believe that Volodymyr Z, good name, was a member of a team that in September 2022 planted explosive devices on the pipeline route carrying natural gas from Russia to Germany. Now, at the time, I thought, well, Ukraine probably doesn't have the ability to do this, so maybe it wasn't them, and America wouldn't do this. They're not going to get into a nuclear war over that. Russia, maybe it's a false flag, but it seems like it's against their economic interests, but it wasn't the first to, but we just don't know who it is still, but maybe it was that Ukrainian diver. We just don't know. Russian natural gas had previously flowed to Germany through Nord Stream 1, which had a capacity of 63 billion cubic meters. The similarly sized Nord Stream 2 was not yet in operation, but the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up, and Germany was really, really energy dependent on Russia at the time. And being beholden to Russia for your energy when you're Germany, who manufactures things that they have to export, was going to be very painful, and the Russians knew it. So that's what happened there, and that's why that happened the way it did. They were getting a sweetheart deal from Russia, and Angela Merkel and others were just saying, look, this is just business. But it was really an economic way of trying to tie up the Germans, and to their credit, they have figured out another way to supply their energy needs. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk on Saturday reacted to reports that revived questions about who blew up the Nord Stream pipelines in 2022, saying the initiators of the gas pipeline project should apologize and keep quiet. That comment came after one of his deputies denied a claim on Wednesday that Warsaw was partly responsible for the damage. Oh, so that brings Poland into the mix. Maybe? Don't know. Germany was a partner with Russia in the pipeline project. Poland has long said its own security interests have been harmed by Nord Stream. Tusk appears to have been reacting specifically to a claim by a former head of Germany's Foreign Intelligence Agency who told the German Daily that the attack on Nord Stream gas pipelines must have had Poland's support. Whether they did or didn't, we just don't know yet. Hanning, who retired from his spy chief job, did not provide any evidence in support of his claim. Krzysztof Górkowski, a deputy Polish prime minister and the minister of digital affairs, strongly denied the reports that Poland and Ukraine had damaged the Nord Stream gas pipeline in an interview on Friday. Górkowski alleged that the comments of the former member of the German intelligence service were inspired by Moscow. Quote, I believe that this is the sound of Russian disinformation, unquote, he added. The Wall Street Journal said in its report on Thursday that it spoke to 4 senior Ukrainian defense and security officials who either participated in or had direct knowledge of the plot. All of them said the pipelines were a legitimate target in Ukraine's war of defense against Russia. Ukrainian authorities are denying the claims. I have no idea who it is. If you know better than I do, you can put that in the comments below. Now, for the fourth big story, I want to turn our attention to Ryan McBeth. He's at Ryan McBeth Programming, and if you're not subscribed, you probably should be. He put out this interesting video about Project 2025, Who's Lying? And we're just going to listen to a minute or two of it. And the reason that I want you to listen to this is because if you listen to what he's saying here, you'll understand how disinformation works. And many of you have questions about Project 2025. If you want to watch the rest of the video, I will pin this link below. Okay, let's listen to what he has to say about how to think about disinformation.
But when it comes to this stuff, I am apolitical. I'll go after right-wing trolls like End Wokeness and DC Drano for posting Russian propaganda the same way I'm going to go after the person who created this infographic. Now, this infographic seems to have popped up online on or about July 4th, 2024. The document appears to be a primer of sorts for the Project 2025 objectives. If you look at the colors of the infographic and the prominent position of presidential candidate Donald Trump, it appears that this document was constructed as sort of a phony document that may have been leaked by the conservatives precisely so that people on the left would be outraged by it. Creating fake documents which are designed to be leaked is a common Russian tactic. It's called an active measure. The anti-Semitic Protocols of the Elders of Zion was a Russian active measure. So was the rumor that AIDS was a bioweapon that was created at Fort Detrick, Maryland. And so was the allegations of American bioweapons labs in Ukraine. Now, this infographic is freaking amateur hour. There's numerous factual mistakes, which I will go over.
It's amateur hour, but it helps you understand how this kind of thing works, and that's where the value is. So that's why I'm spending a couple of minutes with this.
Almost like some guy just read the Project 2025 document, or maybe skimmed it and just threw a bunch of Handmaid's Tale talking points on a graphic, hoping that most of them would be correct or that nobody would check. Well, hi, I'm the guy who checks. Now, looking at the infographic itself, it seems like this document was created by a person who does have a command of English. Everything is spelled correctly. There's really no obvious grammar or punctuation mistakes, although birthright is spelled birthright. But the biggest indicator this is an active measure type document is the lack of attribution. Authentic documents put out by the Heritage Foundation would have a link back to their creator or a URL where you can go to learn more about Project 2025.
Cite your sources, or make sure you only bring forward sources that are cited, like you or people that have incredible credibility. You have to make sure about that. Otherwise, you could be leading people astray.
So it's almost like the person writing this document did not want you to go out and get more information. They want you to read this document, be terrified, and share it. The document is designed as outrage bait for people who only have surface level knowledge of Project 2025 and the issues involved. So did Russia have a hand in making this document? I can't prove it, and I don't think so, but I think it may be more likely that this was constructed by someone on the left as an active measure. They may not even understand that what they're doing is wrong. Now, it seems like the first instance of this document appeared on Imager by a user named dgingerlori64. Based on that account's post history, it appears this account is primarily interested in leftist politics. That's kind of where the trail ends. The document was then made popular by left-wing political pundit Christopher Hahn, who received 4.9 million views as of me writing this.
And this works very similarly to how Russian propaganda works, whether it's coming in domestically or whether it's Russian propaganda. RT will put something out and it'll be spread by Doug McGregor or Redacted or something along those lines, and then it becomes somewhat viral. Same process here.
I actually reached out to Christopher Hahn. I asked him if he was aware that this document was likely an active measure. Mr. Hahn did not respond. Sometimes silence speaks volumes. If you don't care that a document that you are promoting is a lie because it serves your agenda, you're probably not one of the good guys. So let's go over each of the document's claims and see if there's any truth behind it. Now, note the infographic and the page references as well as the complete 900-some Project 2025 playbook is available at ryanmcbeth.substack.com for free. In order to evaluate the truth of this infographic, we actually have to take a look at the Project 2025 document. And I read it, all 900-some pages. And also note that just because the Heritage Foundation wants to do something doesn't mean it's actually going to be able to get it done. Implementing some of these items would require all of Congress to get on board and the Supreme Court to agree that the laws are constitutional. So let's start with the first claim, no-fault divorce. The text divorce only appears on page 51, and it is in the context of funding, as in divorcing policies and the funding needed to implement them. So no-fault divorce is not found in the document, much less end.
But people are going to read this document and they're going to say, see, this is what this thing's going to do, this, right? So just, you have to get into the details here before you run off, or worse, spread that kind of document.
No-fault divorce. If your infographic is starting out with an obvious lie, that probably doesn't bode well for the rest of your document.
Mm-hmm.
The second item is complete ban on abortions without exception. And this is partially true, but not once does the document advocate banning abortion in the general sense. Instead, the document says on page 6, alternative options to abortion, especially adoption, should receive federal and state support. Note that on page 104, there's text that says, the use of public monies for transgender surgeries or to facilitate abortion for service members should be ended. So that's kind of the closest thing you get to a ban, though this really only refers to service members, people who serve in the military. There are sections about defunding Planned Parenthood from Medicaid dollars and prohibiting federal funds for being used for abortion travel. And that means federal funds being used to transport someone from a state with very restrictive abortion laws to a state with fewer abortion laws. That way they can obtain an abortion. The next claim is ban contraceptives. And this isn't just a lie, this is a pants on fire lie. There is text in the document which advocates for supporting and restoring religious and moral exemptions to the contraceptive mandate under the Affordable Care Act. You can find that on page 484. In a nutshell, there are some organizations who do not believe in birth control, and they were essentially forced to offer birth control on their health plans by the federal government. Changing this would allow certain companies who do not believe in contraception to offer healthcare plans without such contraceptive prescription coverage. Next is
okay, so you've seen 3 of them, and if you want to read more or watch more of this, the video is about 20-25 minutes, and you can see it in the link below. But I want you to see how this works and why we need to get, you want to be credible, and you want to make sure that you cite your sources and you're in command of the facts. Okay, let's go to the 5th and final story. Jake Bro posted this: wow, Google closed every Russian AdSense account and demonetized every Russian YouTube channel without notice. Channels are still up, but nobody can make money in any way through YouTube. Sounds like they have if they have residency and banking in another country, they can create a new AdSense account and reapply for monetization. Well, that's what happened to Inside Russia. Somebody tagged me yesterday, or maybe it was late the day before, that Konstantin from Inside Russia had been demonetized. And so yesterday, after I got out of a work meeting, I got ready to get geared up. Okay, let's, it's a warthog again. But it wasn't that. And I opened up Inside Russia. Konstantin was explaining this is what happened to him. It was not Russian trolls trying to take him down. So there's that. And so it's good to know that that's what was causing it. Now, that was caused because YouTube was essentially banned in Russia. I believe that's what caused it. And so it kind of makes sense. All right, that's all that I have, my friends. I know that that was a lot. I'll leave you with this image because this is pretty much what's going on. This is why Europe needs to be really strongly coming to Ukraine's defense. And then America is just beyond that and needs to be doing the same as well. All right. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.